Our demand as First Nations is for a funding envelope for us to be able to do that work, develop the institutions, our own Children's Advocate Office, our own Oversight Committee.
Tonight, the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations says they're ready to start managing child welfare in Saskatchewan.
Canada's been trespassing against First Nations people forever, and it has to stop. It has to stop now.
Rallies are held across Canada showing solidarity with the Wet'suwet'en Nation.
The forecast for this weekend is extremely cold. There's overnight lows predicted beyond -35.
And the city of Edmonton opens a temporary shelter for homeless. Good evening. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Melissa Ridgen. An Indigenous man wanted to open a bank account for his 12-year-old granddaughter, so he set up an appointment at a Vancouver branch of the Bank Montreal. But when they went to the bank, they were accused of fraud and handcuffed by police. The bank has apologized, but the outrage over the incident is growing. And today, a rally was held in front of the bank branch. APTN's Tina House is at the rally and joins us now.
I think anger, disappointment, and many questions are being asked. What exactly happened here on December the 20th when Maxwell Johnson came here to open up a bank account for his 12-year-old daughter? Behind me is a protest going on of some people that have gathered to demand answers to their many questions about what took place here and why a 12-year-old girl was handcuffed along with her grandfather. Joining me here today is Dakota Bear. Dakota, you organized the event for today. Tell me about why you wanted to put this together.
Well, I did co-organize the event alongside a family member. Her name is Contessa. She's a cousin of Max. And today we're gathering united against the racial discrimination and the racial profiling that happens in Canada still 2020 inside the banking institutions, but also education system, healthcare system. I mean, this really hits home. I have family members, friends. I have a young daughter. You know, that could have happened to any one of us. And for the police, shameful actions from the VPD to come inside and to arrest a grandfather and his granddaughter for simply wanting to open up a bank account. I mean, is this 1951 with the pass and the permit system where we were literally confined to our reservations? Or is this 2020 in a more open society? You can't even tell the difference right now because of the actions, the shameful actions that are happening. That's against bank policy, by the way. People that used to be employed by the banking system have been speaking out online and saying that that's against policy to even call the cops if somebody's committing fraud. But no fraud had been taking place. And also, one piece of ID, a birth certificate, was said to be enough by a representative to open up a bank account. They went in there with three pieces of identification. So you can see this is absolutely just unjust. It has so many people upset online, so many people upset at home. So I'm just, honored to be standing alongside the family demanding justice. We're not asking for justice any longer, we're demanding it.
Absolutely. In a statement on Twitter, BMO said that they would be using this as a learning opportunity and apologized prophetically for that. Is that enough for you? Do you think that's enough from BMO to really respond to this?
Well, that's absolutely not enough. And to say that it's a learning opportunity is shameful. It's shameful to even say that. This should be a learning opportunity for all Canadian citizens by this situation. A learning opportunity to say that racial discrimination still happens. Still today, there was a speaker, JB, who was coming to speak on this because she faced racial discrimination inside a bank and she got racial discriminated on her way over here, so she couldn't make it. This happens on a daily occurrence. This is not just a one-time thing. It happens as an Indigenous person in our daily lives. It really hits home, and I know that if more action isn't taken, these protests will only get bigger. People are outraged. Canadian citizens, they're outraged. Our allies, Indigenous people, we've had enough. This is really a tipping point. This happens all of the time. We get our rights trampled on. We get dehumanized. This is just unjust for a country that parades itself with equality and high quality of human rights, but things like this happen, and often they just get swept under the rug, but not today. It's not happening any longer.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us today here. Back to you in studio.
Thanks for that, Tina. To Saskatchewan, the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations say they're ready to start having Indigenous-run child welfare in the province. Now all they need is money from the federal government to do it. APTN's Priscilla Wolf has more.
Bill C-92 has been in effect since January 1st. And Chief Bobby Cameron of the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations says First Nations and tribal councils in Saskatchewan are ready to take over First Nations child welfare. The plans are in place and are ready to implement.
It's imperative that the federal government listen to our chiefs, our councillors. There are different organizations, there are different tribal councils, there are different First Nations right across this country who have started their own path, and those are good things. They do those things based on their First Nation membership, and we support those.
Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations Vice Chief David Pratt says they are preparing an official letter to ask for funding.
Our call here this morning is why we've asked all of you to come, is to let the federal government know that our expectation here and our demand as First Nations is for a funding envelope for us to be able to do that work, develop the institutions, our own Children's Advocate Office, our own oversight committee that's going to make sure that we're maintaining a high quality of standard when it comes to our agencies as we're moving forward, as well as an institution for us to be able to assist our member nations with developing those policies and procedures on the ground and best practices.
The federal government has made the commitment. Just last month, Minister Miller met with FSIN and told them to make an ask for funding.
Let us know what your ask is. Let us know what the needs are, and we're currently compiling that data, getting already a number to go after a specific ask from the Chief's office.
The funding the FSIN wants is $360 million a year for 5 years. That's about $1.8 billion in funding at approximately $63,000 per child in care. Priscilla Wolf, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
We want to hear what you think. Here's how you can continue the conversation. You can send your emails to news@aptn.ca. You can find us online at aptnnews.ca and on youtube.com/aptn news. You can also follow APTN News on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for more Indigenous news. The Trudeau government says it's working hard to eliminate long-term boil water advisories on First Nations, but that will do little good for one couple living at the Fort William First Nation. Willow Fiddler has the story of what it's like trying to get your plumbing fixed when you live on the res.
An elder living in Fort William First Nation says her dignity is going down the drain after living with no running water for over a month. Elaine Saarinen says rats chewed the plumbing underneath the home she shares with her husband from Australia.
As you can see under here where they've started pulling the insulation up through the heating system.
In 2018, Saarinen applied to have the skirting board around her house replaced. She says band housing denied her application.
Since then, rats have eaten through my PEX plumbing and have gotten into my house. I have no water since about the 8th or 9th of December.
Saarinen says that's when she notified Fort William First Nation of the plumbing damage. In an email on December 19, the band's acting CEO tells Saarinen she directed housing staff to proceed with the repairs.
The plumbing's just cut off, like it doesn't go anywhere because the guy found the damage to be too severe down there to even bother trying to repair it.
Saarinen says a contractor with the cheapest quote showed up after Christmas and wanted to install the plumbing along her walls.
And he indicated to me that he wanted to go through my bathroom walls, through my ceramic tiles, run the plumbing on my ceiling, and then box the whole thing in.
But Saarinen says that was unacceptable, so she checked with another contractor who had bid on the same job.
And asked him if this job can be done without going through my house. And he said, absolutely. He said, you would have had water before Christmas.
Saarinen says she waited until the band office reopened after the holidays to follow up with administration. On January 7, the band's director of lands and resources emailed Saarinen to tell her hiring a more expensive contractor would need to be taken to the council meeting for approval on January 8th. This band counselor who showed up to check on Saarinen during our interview says her housing issues weren't brought up at the meeting. Overwhelmed and frustrated, Saarinen says she's worried about breathing in rat feces from the vents.
I just feel really degraded. My dignity is going down the tubes. And I just feel ill. I feel ill. And since September, October, I've been overusing Ventolin, and not overusing, but having to use it a lot, and use a steroid. because my breathing has become really bad.
She says the band has since offered to pay $10,000 towards the repairs, but she would be responsible for the rest. Fort William's acting CEO Karen Bannon declined to comment to APTN, but said they were working on Saarinen's request. Willow Fiddler, APTN National News, Thunder Bay.
Road closures and mass evacuations have plagued South Australia's Kangaroo Island in the last 24 hours. After surviving the brunt of overnight bushfires, residents woke up to cooler temperatures and a few showers. With more on this story, here's Shani Wellington of the National Indigenous Television.
Destruction on the doorstep. Chilling vision as an out-of-control bushfire descends on the Davis family home that they chose to stay back and defend.
She's still going to go here. This will be massively hot in here in a sec. Yeah.
It's been a sleepless night for firefighters and residents of Kangaroo Island as fires continue to threaten their community. Many were evacuated in the early hours of this morning, taking refuge at Kingscote Oval, unsure what awaits them when they return. For one resident, courageous efforts saved his father's home.
It would have killed him, so we didn't want to lose his home, and so we tried hard to save it, and we did. The whole family was here.
Welcomed relief came this morning with rain and a 15-degree temperature drop. Local authorities say time is of the essence.
We know that we've got a limited window before the next hot day. We're still in early January and we are going to have another hot day, and our priority task is to get back in and build those control lines again.
Western Australia was also swept up in the flames, with homes and lives threatened in Tudjay, a town northeast of Perth. The emergency warning was reduced to a watch and act message overnight.
You just got to sit around and wait and see what happens and what's left.
Warnings across Victoria and New South Wales are still in place, with extreme fire conditions across the board. Searing temperatures followed by a gusty wind change threaten to escalate out-of-control bushfires in East Gippsland, the Alpine region and the northeast. Prime Minister Scott Morrison has given the Defence Force strict instructions to prepare the troops.
They are to stand ready to move and support immediately in the event that they are needed in the wake of what we hope we will not see today, but we must prepare for today.
With high temperatures forecast for the weekend, an anxious wait lies ahead. Shani Wellington, NITV News.
Rallies were held in several communities across the country in solidarity with the Wet'suwet'en Hereditary Chiefs. We'll take you to a few after the break. And first, here's tomorrow's weather forecast for eastern and central Canada. In Newfoundland, we've got -8 and sunshine for St. John's, 2 in Halifax. Kuujjuaq, -25, clear skies in Ukshuak, snow at -22. Rouyn-Noranda, -14, same with Val-d'Or, snowing there. Montreal's 10 and cloudy. We've got 11 and cloud for Toronto, 9 and rain in Ottawa. -21 and sunshine for Big Trout Lake, -17 in Wawa. -17 in snow for the Pod, Norway House and God's Lake are both -18 and sunny. -17 for Brandon, Gimli, Winnipeg and cloudy skies. -6 in snow for Swift Current, -11 in snow for Estevan. -23 and snow in Buffalo Narrows, -28 in snow in Stony Rapids. Welcome back. Supporters of the Wet'suwet'en Nation gathered across the country today. Demonstrations were held from the East Coast to northwestern BC. Hundreds came out to show solidarity for the Wet'suwet'en's fight to keep Coastal GasLink pipeline off their land. We start in Halifax, where Mi'kmaq grandmothers and more than 50 supporters rallied. Here's Angel Moore.
Coastal Gas! Alton Gas! Both these projects shall not pass!
Alton Gas protesters and water protectors rallied in solidarity for the Wet'suwet'en Nation. Thunderbirds swooping down women occupied a camp at the Alton Gas project site. The gas company wants to dump salty brine into the Sebenegati River. The Mi'kmaq fear the river will be damaged. Swooping down woman says corporations only care about money.
They don't care about the land. They don't care about the water. And that's the sad part about this. And that's why we have to stand out in this cold to make a point.
The battle against corporations is happening from coast to coast. Melissa Morisseau says she was at the Kinder Morgan blockade in Burnaby in 2018, taking action to protect the land and inspire youth.
And if we don't show them, who will? And we have to instill that pride back into them and show them that together we can do this.
They support the Wet'suwet'en Hereditary Chief's notice to evict Coastal GasLink and their fight to protect the land.
Canada's been trespassing against First Nations people forever, and it has to stop. It has to stop now.
Angel Moore, APTN National News, Chaputduk, Halifax.
And in Montreal, under the watchful eye of local police, dozens gathered at the gates of McGill University to show their solidarity. Led by Marlene Hale, the so-called only Wet'suwet'en in Quebec, they linked arms, raised signs, and sang songs of unity. But even with more demonstrations of solidarity to come, Hale says there's still inherent worry about a crisis erupting back home.
All we want is to go back to a pristine land that it was, and not mowed over, and not arrested for, and not degraded for, and not respected for. And the consent, the respect, everything has to be done in unison. I think we've all learned the protocol now.
Now to a rally in the nation's capital. About 100 people marched through Ottawa's downtown. One of the leaders was 16-year-old Maya Bayer. She and the others at one point gathered across the street from the Prime Minister's office. APTN News asked Bayer what she'd say to Justin Trudeau if she had the chance.
Stop the pipeline! Stop the hatred! I would simply ask why, and I would ask him why he isn't doing more. He has all of the science, he has all of this information, he has the means to change, he has the means to put an end to this genocide, yet he continues pushing it forward and continues allowing it. And it's disgraceful.
And to British Columbia, where hereditary chiefs rallied to show support for Wet'suwet'en's hereditary chiefs who are leading the charge against the pipeline. Chiefs and their supporters marched in the town of Smithers. Smithers is near the Gedempton and Unistoten protest camps, whose members stand in opposition of a natural gas project running through their traditional territory. They say their unceded lands are under attack and they have a duty to protect it. Namuks is encouraged by the global support they're receiving.
And we're doing the right thing, and people know we're doing the right thing. Like, everybody always talks about climate change, and they say, well, what can we do? They're letting industry and elected governments know that there are better ways to do things, and they should not be putting price tags on clean air, pristine land, and the very air that we breathe.
A former SNC executive has been sentenced to 8.5 years on fraud and corruption charges stemming from construction deals in Libya. Last month, Sami Bebawi, the former head of the company's construction division, he was found guilty of paying off foreign officials and pocketing millions himself as he worked to secure contracts for SNC-Lavalin in Libya. The case centered on major infrastructure projects and dealings with Saudi Gaddafi, a son of the late Libyan dictator Muammar Gaddafi. SNC-Lavalin is the company at the center of the scandal that caused a major rift between then Attorney General Jody Wilson-Raybould and the Prime Minister's office. She'd said that she'd felt pressured by Justin Trudeau's people to not prosecute the Quebec-based company. She was ultimately booted from the Liberals over the scandal. Time for us to take another break, but there's still more news ahead, and here's the rest of tomorrow's weather forecast for the west and the north. In northern Alberta, we've got -22 in Peace River and snow, -30 in snow for Fort Chip, -14 in snow in Edmonton, -5 in snow in Lethbridge, 6 and rain for Campbell River, -3 in snow for Quesnel, -1 for Sandspit, Prince Rupert's +1 and cloud, -46 and sunny in Dawson City, -42 and clear in Old Crow, -36 for Wati, clear skies, -31 in Fort Simpson. Inuvik, -21 in clear skies, -30 in Sax Harbor. Chesterfield, minus 34, and sunny Arviat, minus 32 and sunshine. Tallyoak, minus 25 and snow. Clyde River, minus 25 and clear, and minus 33 and clear in Pangertown. Welcome back. The cold snap in Alberta shows no sign of ending, which can be deadly for people who don't have a place to stay. But the city of Edmonton is trying to make sure no one gets caught out in the cold. APTN's Chris Stewart has more.
The first cold snap of the winter looks to be a long one. Temperatures are in the minus 20s and look to get even colder. Next week is predicted to have a feel-like temperature of minus 40. In response, the City of Edmonton has decided to use the Commonwealth Rec Centre to house some of the homeless who need a warm place to sleep. Crystal Kajaner is the Director of Housing and Homelessness.
The forecast for this weekend is extremely cold. There's overnight lows predicted beyond minus 35, and so we wanted to activate the protocol now to allow time for people to become aware of that option, and then to just make sure that there's another safe place for people who are vulnerable to go during the extreme weather that we expect.
Kajaner says that other shelters do still have some available room.
The existing shelters still do have capacity, and we encourage people who are seeking shelter to seek shelter at those shelters first. So in particular, Home Mission last night was only at about 80%, so they still have room. However, given the extreme cold period that we're heading into this weekend, we in an abundance of caution and prioritizing individual safety in this extreme weather, it was important to us, so we decided to activate the protocol.
It will be business as usual for the rec center. From 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., the center will become a shelter with beds and other amenities.
There's also going to be access to washrooms and shower facilities in the change rooms as well. We have currently planned a capacity for 36 people, which was based on the number of people we saw staying in Central LRT Station last year when we activated that as our winter emergency option. But again, we have room to expand if the need grows.
The city will give 3 days' notice before closing the temporary shelter down. Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
That's your news for this Friday. I want to say a quick thanks to my little buddy Will for my handmade jewelry tonight. And we'll leave you with a ram dance held here in Winnipeg, also to show support for Wet'suwet'en. I'm Melissa Ridgen. Have a great night.